Good morning and welcome back to Margin. This morning we're going to talk about what now. What do you do now that your taxes are filed? So let's jump right into it. So once you have filed your personal tax return, you, much like the rest of us, have a huge sigh of relief that it's finally done. Now, with that, oftentimes, since most people file their taxes once a year, they don't think about it again until tax season comes around again. So it's important to look at what your system is going to look like going forward, utilizing those 10 steps to ensure that you're getting organized now so that this time next year, you are not going through the process again of having to go through all those bank statements and locate all those receipts, find all the documentation, and figure out what was for what and when it occurred and so on and so forth. So getting organized now will allow you to periodically take care of things throughout the year to make sure that you're prepared for the next tax season. Now, being that you are going to apply those 10 steps, hopefully, and you're going to utilize some kind of tracking system for that, you'll also want to consider how you need to recalibrate. Now, recalibration oftentimes doesn't occur because people have that sigh of relief that their taxes are done and they don't think about it again. But 3 components are important to look at when it comes to recalibration. And that's kind of what I want to talk about today. So the first component comes down to withholdings. Now, when we're talking about recalibration, many people don't think about going into a new year, into a new tax season, and recalibrating their withholdings. But the problem with that is the fact that if you did indeed owe to the federal government, or you received a tax refund, that means that you are not calibrated properly, in my perspective. And so when you're looking at withholdings, it can be a challenging thing because oftentimes we are met with very little information, very little helpful information from a human resources office in a company or organization that we work for. And so we may not have or be able to get the information we need in order to know what those withholdings should look like. And so as I was going through this process and trying to figure out how to make it a little bit less ambiguous, but be very careful being that I can't provide tax advice, I immediately went to the IRS and basically looking at publications, looking at recommendations based on how to handle those things. And so with that, there are specific calculators from the IRS website that basically allows you to go through the process of jumping on there and actually putting in your situation and figuring out what your withholding should look like. So that is my recommendation as for step number 1, because oftentimes it can be an ambiguous thing trying to figure out what your withholding should look like. So as we're looking at an ideal approach for taxation, I look at it from a standpoint of closely estimating what your withholdings need to be, what your situation needs to be from a tax standpoint so that you are not giving the federal government a free 0% loan by receiving a tax return in the form of a check at the end of the year when you are filing your taxes, or getting surprised because you owe taxes at the end of the year because you didn't withhold enough. And so I look at it from a standpoint of you want to be as close to 0 as possible so that you are keeping as much money in your pocket so you can invest that and use that to build margin, but that you are not inadvertently not withholding enough to where you end up with a an IRS bill and you have the IRS coming after you. So you obviously don't want either of those pictures. So component number 2 comes down to reviewing your retirement contributions. So oftentimes with employers, they may have an employer match that you may not be taking advantage of. So this is a perfect opportunity for you to maximize your contributions so that you are taking advantage of the opportunity to get that free money. Now, you may also have an auto escalation clause or an auto escalation in your retirement savings. So you'll want to calibrate that to figure out if you need to opt in for that or if you are maxing that out. But the purpose of this component is really to make sure that you're putting away enough for retirement. Now, I did a prior episode just talking about, maxing out the use of any money being provided as a match through your company, then moving to a Roth IRA and matching that out, then going through the process of maxing out retirement savings. So I've already gone through that process with you, but I think today it's just a good reminder to recalibrate how much you're putting away for retirement in order to ensure that you're intentional about adjusting the amount that you're attributing to that. So the third component after you are looking at your withholdings and your retirement contribution will of course be to recalibrate your plan to spend, recalibrate your budget to figure out, okay, now that I have these priorities of making sure that my withholdings at the right place and that my contributions to retirement are at the proper place, then figuring out how that affects your financial picture to make sure that you're planning for that so that you can make adjustments based on what's important. And so that third component is so important, so pivotal. That's why I bring it up so much, is to make sure that you do have a plan to spend in place. So my call to action today comes down to looking at these 3 components, looking at what aspects you've already addressed and which ones you haven't, and making sure that as you have this opportunity to recalibrate things after you have filed your return and you have an idea of whether you owe or whether you're receiving a return, that you take that as an opportunity to learn and grow and be able to apply it so that going forward, you are getting better and better at managing your personal finances. If this information is helpful to you, please do like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you're reminded to come back on a daily basis and improve in managing your personal finances. Thank you for your time. Enjoy your day, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.